Chapter 1, Section 3, Biotalk, Pyramids of Mass and Energy. One of the most important abiotic factors that affects relationships in a community is energy. Organisms in an ecosystem are tied together by the flow of energy from one organism to another. The food chain that exists when a herbivore eats a plant and a carnivore eats a herbivore depends on the energy entering the community in the form of sunlight. Without the sun, there would be no green plants, no herbivores, and no carnivores. There are a few ecosystems that get their energy from another source. So here's the pyramid of energy. The sunlight. Some energy is retained in the living system. You have your plants, you have your herbivores, you have your carnivores. Energy lost in the living system. The size of a community, therefore, is limited by the amount of energy entering it through its producers. The total amount of chemical energy stored by photosynthesis is the gross primary productivity of the community. Much of that energy is used by the producers to grow and to maintain themselves. The remaining energy, which is available to the consumers as food, is the net primary productivity of the community. The transfer of energy from producer to primary consumer to secondary consumer and so on in a food web must follow the laws of thermodynamics. The first law of thermodynamics states that although energy can be transformed, it cannot be created or destroyed. Some energy from the sun is transformed into a form that can be used by living organisms. However, if energy is not destroyed, what happens to it? Why is it necessary to keep adding energy in the form of sunlight? That is where the second law of thermodynamics comes into play. It states that in any energy transformation, some energy is lost from the system in an unusable form. Usually, this is in the form of heat. In this activity, you actually measured the temperature increases that resulted from the heat loss from the human body. You noted that with exercise, the heat loss was even greater than without movement. Among living beings, the transfer of energy in food from eaten to eater is really quite inefficient. And of course, a great deal of the food does not get eaten at all. From grass to sheep, the loss is about 90%. It takes about 10 kilograms of organic matter in the grass to support 1 kilogram of sheep. And if I scroll back up, they talked about lost energy. So this is the energy lost in the living system. So the sunlight enters. Some energy is retained in the living system, and the energy retained is, used by the plants, the herbivores that eat the plants, and then you have the carnivores that eat the herbivores. But throughout that process, there is the energy lost. Okay, let me scroll back down. For the sake of simplification, assume that each consumer lives entirely on one kind of food. Then a person on a lake might live entirely on a given type of fish, for example, to support 1 kilogram of this person. To support 1 kilogram of this person, it takes about 10 kilograms of fish, 100 kilograms of minnows, 1,000 kilograms of water fleas, and 10,000 kilograms of algae. Let me scroll down a little bit because they do explain that. If I zoom out, they do explain this. So For the sake of simplification, assume that each consumer lives entirely on one kind of food. Then a person on a lake might live entirely on a given type of fish. For example, to support 1 kilogram of this person, it takes 10 kilograms of fish, 100 kilograms of minnows, 1,000 kilograms of water fleas, and 10,000 kilograms of algae. This information in graph form is called a pyramid of living matter. Mass is a measure of the amount of matter in an object. Because much of the mass of living organisms is water, the producers first must be dried for a truer estimate of their mass when constructing a pyramid of matter. The pyramid shows that the amount of matter is greatest at the producer level. It is possible to measure the amount of energy available at each level. The pyramid of energy that results from graphing these values also shows, let me zoom back in. Actually, we're almost done, so I can stay zoomed out. Okay, here we go. Shows that the energy available is greatest at the producer level and steadily decreases at the other levels. Each step in the pyramid is called a trophic level or energy level because energy is lost at each transfer. The steps in the pyramid of energy are limited. Usually there are no more than about 5 trophic levels in a food chain. It is also possible to construct a pyramid of numbers by counting the number of organisms in a food chain. Although the largest number of organisms is usually found at the base of the pyramid, this is not always the case. For example, in a meadow, there will be many more grass plants than there will be grasshoppers. However, a single tree can sustain many caterpillars. So when they talk about each step, okay, they're looking at this. So this is just a theoretical pyramid of living matter where 1,000,000 kilograms of algae supports 100,000 kilograms of water fleas, which support 10,000 kilograms of minnows, which support 1,000 kilograms of fish, which supports a 100 kilogram human. And then the energy loss, they were saying that each step has energy loss, which can further be shown by the energy lost on this diagram.